Today's episode of Thin Air Podcast is supported by Winc. Winc is a direct-to-consumer winery revolutionizing the way you discover, buy, and share wine. Winc is offering our audience members who are 21 and live in the U.S. a $22 credit plus free shipping on their first order of 4 bottles of wine as new members of Winc. Go to trywinc.com/thinair and get $22 off when you become a new member. Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Thin Air Podcast. We're glad to be back on the air after a nice winter break, and we appreciate all your patience while we worked on developing new content. Speaking of new content, Jordan and I produce monthly bonus episodes available exclusively for our patrons over at patreon.com/thinairpodcast. This month, we caught up with some past guests and revisited old episodes that have had updates since we originally aired them. If you want to help support what we do, get stickers, bonus content, and ad-free episodes, head over to patreon.com/thinairpodcast and choose your pledge amount. We are truly grateful for all the people who have pledged thus far. Now, on with the show. In March of 2017, I spoke to Valerie Sorrells, the mother of Cameron Remmer, a man who, on a business trip to San Francisco, disappeared one night and was never heard from again. He was featured in episode 20 and 21 of our podcast. It was at this time that I first heard about a group of missing men from California known as the Missing California Five.
The California Missing Five, those boys all went missing. I can't explain how hard it gets the longer, more time goes by, and the more you hear there's less chance of finding them. It's so hard.
The Missing California Five are 5 young men between the ages of 19 and 29 who vanished in San Francisco between 2010 and 2013. They are Shawn, Christian Michael Hughes, Shawn Dickerson, Cameron Remmer, and Jackson Miller.
We all deserve closure. We all deserve to find our sons, somehow find them. It's not just my message. It's other mothers out there, too, whose sons are missing.
As I began reading more about the Missing California Five, I discovered a few things. First, all of the men who are part of the Missing California Five went missing within about the same 3-year time period, all from San Francisco. And second, all of the men went missing under different circumstances. That is, it is highly unlikely that their cases are connected in any other way than time frame and location. Regardless of whether or not the men's disappearance are directly connected, this group of mothers, Valerie included, bonded together with the hopes that, as a unified front, they could get publicity and eventually answers about their missing sons.
Yeah, the California Five is what the news people call them. They kind of sound like a bunch of bank robbers.
Close to a year after speaking to Valerie, I got a chance to speak to Trisha Brucker, the mother of one of the other men from the Missing California Five, Shawn Dickerson.
So we were able to get exposure for Shawn with the other boys together. That's how we became, California Five. Oddly enough, since they've been missing, since the California Five have been coming out missing, other young men that came out missing have been found. But you know what is strange is when the California Five got together, we've not found any of them.
I was particularly drawn to Shawn's case because of the mysterious circumstances under which he went missing and the possibility that he could still be alive. At the time of his disappearance in 2001, Shawn was 23 years old. He weighed about 150 pounds, stood around 5 feet 9 inches, and had blonde hair and blue eyes. Even though Shawn disappeared from San Francisco, his life began about 2 hours east in Modesto, California. Shawn had been the only child of Trisha and John Dickerson.
See, I met Shawn's dad when we were 12 and 13. When you're young, it's the love of your life, all that. John was my first love. We were together through high school, and we went to junior high and high school and prom and everything. I had Shawn when I was 19, and then John was killed on a motorcycle when Shawn was 2. And then it was just me and Shawn. So I raised Shawn, and then I met Philip when Shawn was 7. But when John died, out of that, I got saved and I started going to church. So I raised Shawn going to church. He had a ministry called Team Jesus that they went out and did on a team. They went out and did some, like dramas and skits, and they did karate. They did taekwondo, and he just happened to he was a black belt. I tried to get him to do baseball, soccer, whatever. No, didn't want anything to do with that. When he was young, he got into skating. He was an inline aggressive skater. In fact, he's been in a couple magazines. He got into that. So his skating meant a lot to him. So any single type of sports, those are the ones that he was interested in, not a team.
As Shawn got older, he spoke about how he felt out of place, that social situations were difficult for him. Because of this, he questioned how he acted when talking to others.
And we noticed a change in Shawn when he was like in 7th and 8th grade, but that's normal. You do go through a change in 7th and 8th grade. It's, you're going from a boy to a young man. But he said that he would have to watch people and he would have to mimic how they would act to get through life. Like, hi, shake the hand, put your hand by your side, smile and nod and act like you're interested. He goes, Mom, it's an act. It's very exhausting. And then he went, he graduated in 2006, and it was later that year. So he was 17 when he went off to San Francisco.
In 2007, Shawn packed up his belongings and moved to San Francisco with his longtime girlfriend, Anjuli Droll.
Anjuli, they met when they were 16. I knew when he brought her in the home that he loved her. Anjuli's family lives like they're in a bubble, like the Leave It to Beaver family. Like nothing bad happens in the world. Everything is, they're kind of like that. And Shawn's just like raw. Shawn's just like, this is the raw truth. Okay, this sucks. The world sucks.
I can see what Trisha is talking about when she describes the affection between the young lovers. She sent me 3 pictures of Shawn and Anjuli together, each one capturing a different moment of young love. The picture booth at the mall, their heads tilted, making silly faces. An excursion to a beach and boardwalk, laying together on a towel. And what looks like them together at an outdoor event. You can't see it in the picture, but you can tell he's got his hands wrapped around her waist, both of them smiling. After 3 years of dating during and after high school, Shawn and Anjuli decided to make the move west to the big city of San Francisco, where Shawn could pursue one of his passions, music.
Let me tell you something about Shawn. Shawn is the most brilliant person I've ever met in my life. He is unbelievably musically genius. When Shawn was playing the piano when he was little, I never took him to piano lessons. I mean, basically, he just sat down and just said, I'm going to start playing the piano. And I'm like, okay. So I bought him like a little keyboard for his birthday. I think he was like 9 or 10. It was unbelievable how fast he picked up on it. When he started his freshman year in school, I said, Shawn, you probably need to take some piano lessons, So we started taking some piano lessons, and it was early in the year when they kind of like have teacher-parent, night. I went there and met his music teacher, and I asked him about Shawn, and he goes, Shawn is amazing. He's amazing in music.
After moving to San Francisco, Shawn started playing keyboard for a local band named Fee, performing gigs around the Bay Area. Since Shawn's disappearance, the band seems to have broken up. Their Twitter has been deactivated, and both their MySpace and Facebook music pages haven't had any new information since 2011. In fact, the song that's been playing in the background is from Shawn's band, Fee. While living in San Francisco, Shawn would, every so often, take the BART public transit system from his home to the station in Dublin, California, the closest stop to Modesto, where his mom would come pick him up. There was one particular time that Shawn came home that he had something extremely important to share with his mom and stepdad before they moved to Denver, Colorado, where Trisha lives today.
He said, Mom, I think that I'm autistic. I think that I'm Asperger's. And now, before he can come talk to us about this, he studied everything. Before saying anything to anybody, he wants to know that he's got his information correct. When I looked into it, I couldn't believe the similarities. Things that Shawn did when he was a little boy, it's Asperger's. It's how they are,
Shawn was never officially diagnosed with Asperger's, but something about the syndrome clearly resonated with him, like feeling alienated in social situations when he was younger. Whatever the case, even into young adulthood, Shawn realized that he seemed different from others. In the 5 years between leaving home and his disappearance in 2011, Shawn went to school at San Francisco State University and was saving up money to eventually move to New York with Andrew Lee. This led to them living in an apartment with 5 other people in an attempt to save money. Shawn would get a job at Rolo, an upscale clothing store in the Castro district. Given Shawn's unique style of dress, it would make sense that he would work at a trendy downtown fashion store.
He looks like he's probably about to have an interview with somebody. Seriously, that's how he dresses. He has set trends way ahead before their time. He's a trendsetter.
This brings us to the few months leading up to Shawn's disappearance. There are a few crucial details that happened within these months, details that, on their own, didn't seem unusual, but in retrospect, these events give us a picture of Shawn's life before he vanishes. The first important event is that Shawn loses his wallet and his ID. With no ID and no credit or debit cards, he was forced to use mainly cash and avoid situations where he might need proof of age or identification. The second event is that Shawn changes his name and picture on Facebook from one of him to something that can best be described as a catch me if you can style image. The picture has since been removed, but Trisha, who saw it, explains.
It was him running, there was a side view, and holding this old school briefcase. So he was showing the sense that I got from the picture, where it looks like it's a blurry picture of him running, like he was running from his life. That's what I got from it. He had that picture on there. And for a second, I thought, where's he going? Like he was running away from his life. So I called him. I said, well, Shawn, what's up with the picture? Or I had seen it earlier or something, but it was only just that day. When I went back onto his Facebook page, the picture was gone. And I asked him about it because it freaked me out. Shortly after that, probably within just a day or two or so, that's when he came up Clouds Agnes.
He changed his name from Shawn Dickerson to Klaus Agnes, a name Trisha explains was a combination of 2 of his favorite bands. And the last event, which it's unclear exactly when this happened, but Shawn had gotten into trouble with the law for stealing a dress jacket from an upscale clothing store. He had an upcoming court date scheduled for December 7th, 2011. We couldn't find in our research what he was being charged with or if there was a fine or penalty. It is also around this time that Shawn started exhibiting behavior that seemed out of the ordinary for him.
I found out after he was missing that he was doing some strange things, like he was climbing buildings and sleeping up top on the roofs. Even though he had a place to live, he would go up there. And one time he called me and said, "Hey, Mom, guess where I'm at?" And I'm like, "Where?" And he said he was at a hostel. He was staying in a hostel. And I said, "Oh, Shawn, why would you be at a hostel? Are you okay? Did you have to leave your place, or what's going on?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I just wanted to see what it would be like." Another friend of his told me that they were talking about some guy that they knew, and they were wondering what happened to him. And he said, "Oh, didn't you hear? He's living on the streets now." And they said, "Gosh, I couldn't do that." And they said that Shawn was very interested in it. Shawn saw freedom living on the streets and just not doing this normal, everyday, go to work, pay your bills. It just didn't make sense to him to live like we're living. You go to work to pay for a house that you're not in because you're at work. These are the things that he didn't understand. That we go to work to pay for a car, but we need the car because we got to go to work. So he's like, this is ridiculous. The way we're living is ridiculous. This is the kind of things that he would talk to me about.
December 1st, 2011, the day before Shawn disappears. The day begins as usual for Shawn. He gets up and goes to work at Rollo. Shawn had been anticipating this day for a while, not only because it was payday, but also because he was getting his first performance review from the owner.
So he'd only been working at this clothing store, which he absolutely loved. He loved working at this clothing store. And everybody was very happy with him. But so his boss gave him a review. He said it went like normal. Like, "Oh, yeah, you need to, you're doing good with this, but you need to work on that." He said Shawn seemed very normal, except for he had a lot of anxiety.
A few hours after his review, Shawn was eager to cash his paycheck, so he asked if he could go to lunch early.
See, the clothing store he worked at was very small, and there wasn't a lot of employees working at it at a time. He goes, "Well, I couldn't let Shawn leave early for lunch because, it's a very small store. I didn't have a staff." He said Shawn was bugging me. Like, as soon as he got his check, he just had this anxiety. He was just wanting to get out of there for whatever reason. So he let Shawn leave, and then Shawn came back. He walked outside and came right back in. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I forgot I don't have an ID. Can you walk me to the bank?" He goes, "Well, now he's really making it inconvenient for me." He goes, "Okay." So I walked him to the bank, which was just down the street. We cashed his check. We parted ways outside, and he would be back after lunch.
Shawn fails to show back up for work that day. In fact, what happens between the time Shawn leaves the bank and 1 a.m. the next morning when he arrives home to the apartment he shares with Andrew Lee is largely unknown. What we do know from cell phone records obtained after Shawn's disappearance is that the owner of the Rollo clothing store where he worked texted Shawn asking where he was and why he hadn't come back to work. According to a 2012 article in the Mission Local, a San Francisco-based publication, the owner of the store received a text from Shawn, quote, around 11:30 that night and apologized. Dickerson explained that he had autism. His boss replied that the message sounded like an excuse and that he didn't want to work with him if he couldn't rely on him coming back to work. End quote. Also, according to the Mission Local article, later that night, around 1:14 a.m., Shawn makes a call from his cell phone to one of his neighbors, who he happens to encounter sitting outside on a shared porch. Shawn and the neighbor end up talking for a few minutes. Later, the neighbor would recount that Shawn seemed frustrated and had told him about losing his job at Rollo, which seems to be an odd thing to say since there is no record from anyone other than that conversation about Shawn losing his job at Rollo that day. So there are a few possible speculations about why Shawn had said that. Either Shawn had actually been fired, which we found no evidence for, or he meant he lost his job in the sense that he was quitting and never going back there. Or he was lying to the neighbor. Based on my conversations with Trisha, I don't really get the impression that Shawn would have been the kind of person to lie about something. In fact, I usually got the opposite impression.
If you wanted to know the truth about something, he was the one to ask because he'd brutally tell you the truth. with no care or fear at all. He wouldn't notice your disappointment or sadness on you or anything like that. He didn't pick up on stuff like that.
So it is my speculation that regardless whether or not he had actually been fired, he had no real intentions of ever going back to work after this incident. After talking to the neighbor, Shawn arrives home to Andrew Lee, where he makes no mention about the day's events. In fact, it wouldn't be for a few days that Andrew Lee would learn about this conversation with the neighbor that night and about Shawn's job situation.
So that night he stayed up really late, and Andrew Lee had some friends over that night, and she said that Shawn was acting really weird. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, he was annoying. He was almost acting like a little brother, like he was embarrassing me, and he was just jumping around. She goes, I don't know what he was on. You know, Shawn doesn't drink or anything. She doesn't know what he was on, if he was on anything, but he was acting very strange. He stayed up really late, and she says, you know, don't you have to go to bed? You have to get up and go to work in the morning. And then that's when they all ended up going to bed.
The next morning, Andrew Lee wakes Shawn up because she thinks he's late for work. He gets dressed and runs out the door.
But why he didn't tell anybody, he didn't say anything about him leaving his job. He didn't say anything about nothing about the job. They just assumed that he went to work like normal. So when she woke him up the next day, he pretended like, you're right, I'm late for work. So he grabbed a Pop-Tart and ran out the door.
What follows is a series of events that still lack much explanation today. Instead of going to work that day, Shawn goes for a walk around town and documents his day in a series of photographs that are privately posted to his Facebook page. The pictures, all in sets of 3, show us quite explicitly what Shawn did the day of his disappearance. The first picture, which I might add is the only one that is not in a set of 3, is of him at the bottom of a yellow slide. Only his brown leather shoes and black pant legs are visible. The next 3 photos
look like you're playing hooky. You know, it looks like you're supposed to be in school, but you're running around town, you know. He went into a store or a restaurant or somewhere where they had like green shutters, like there were these green blinds. He went to his favorite, it was like a Chinese food place. And he took pictures of the food, you know how they do now with the kids, the millennials, you know, but yeah, they took a picture of the food and then took a picture of the plate being empty.
The next 3 pictures are of the beach. One just of the sand, the second of a wave coming over the sand, and a third after the wave has completely passed over the sand. These are followed by 3 more pictures of the bay. The first one centered with equal distribution of bay and sky. The second one is mostly sky, and the third one is mostly bay. The final 3 pictures are all different angles of a red chair hanging on a wall in a parking lot, presumably a modern art installment. All of these sets of pictures seem intentionally and artistically composed. Andrew Lee is quoted in the Mission Local article as saying, quote, "When we weren't working, we would walk through Chinatown, up Columbus, and to the aquatic park and Fort Mason," end quote. All places Shawn visited in the pictures he uploaded to Facebook the day he disappeared. These photographs are the last known actions of Shawn Dickerson. When we get back from the break, what happened in the days after Shawn disappeared? What new evidence has come to light over the past 6 years since Shawn was last heard from? And is it possible that Shawn is still alive? A voicemail left for Trisha from a sheriff in Colorado sparks new hopes in this case.
I have a couple of real recent sightings of him. We did determine that he was here, so he is alive.
Thanks to Wink for supporting our podcast. Wink is targeting a new generation of wine drinkers who want to do away with the pretense and simply enjoy reasonably priced great wine. Wink custom tailors wines to the taste of the individual consumer and delivers 3 bottles of wine each month to your doorstep for $39 plus a flat $6 shipping rate. Visit Wink and take the 20-second palate profile quiz to get instant wine recommendations based on your unique profile. Wink is offering our audience members who are over 21 and live in the US a $22 credit plus free shipping on your first order of 4 bottles of wine as a new member of Wink. To receive your $22 credit and free shipping, go to trywink.com/thinair. That's trywink.com/thinair. When Shawn didn't return home that night of December 2nd, 2011, Andrew Lee, his longtime girlfriend, and his roommates didn't suspect anything odd. After all, they had gotten used to the idea that sometimes Shawn would go off and spend the night at hostels or sleep on rooftops. However, Shawn disappeared on a Friday and had a scheduled court appearance the following Wednesday, December 7th, for the coat he was caught stealing a few months prior.
He stole a jacket in some sort of a dress store, like a suit jacket.
Andrew Lee and Shawn's roommates thought that if Shawn was sleeping somewhere else besides their apartment, that he would most definitely have to show up by that Wednesday when he was due in court. When Wednesday came with no sign of Shawn, they knew there was a problem.
He was supposed to go to court that Wednesday. Well, Andrew Lee knew that he had court that Wednesday, so they didn't say anything to anybody until Wednesday. Wednesday came along, and they went to court to see if he was going to show up, and he didn't show up. So then that's when she decided to call me. She's never called me before. So when she called me that day, I thought, that's weird. She was saying, is Shawn there? And I said, Angela, this is Shawn's mom. We're in Colorado. And she goes, oh, I know, I'm calling you guys. I was just seeing if Shawn's there. And I'm like, why would he be here? Now, Shawn had paid for tickets to come out to be with us for Christmas that year. We were talking, it's like not another 3 more weeks till Christmas. So I was like, why is she calling me? Why does she think that Shawn's here? And I go, no, I haven't seen him. And of course I call, but he's 23, he's not going to call me right away. He's living his life, in San Francisco. So it wasn't unusual for Shawn not to call me right back. I just thought it was a strange call. A little bit of me thought that maybe she blew it and like he was coming out to surprise us. And so she thought that he was here. So I kind of got excited.
It's important to note that at this point, Andrew Lee didn't mention anything to Trisha about Shawn being officially missing, just that she hadn't seen him. With the strange call weighing heavily on her mind, Trisha calls her sister Terry, who still lived in Modesto, to tell her about the situation.
So my sister was having weird feelings. Like she thought something was going on with Shawn. She was calling him and he wasn't returning her call. So she took off out to San Francisco from Modesto. And when she landed on Angela's doorstep, I believe this was either Thursday or Friday. I'm not sure. She said, where's Shawn? And they go, we haven't seen him since Friday. Nobody has seen him. And she was like, what? What do you mean nobody's seen Shawn? Did you say anything to my sister about him being missing? She goes, no. So she went around looking for him. And then I got a call on Saturday. My sister called me. As soon as she called me, I said, where's Shawn? Immediately when Terry called me, I knew that they hadn't seen him. You know that 48-hour show where you get 48 hours to figure this thing out? You have some sort of a chance. I had nothing but, mine was 8-9 days later.
Even though Trisha was only learning about Shawn's disappearance a week after the last reported sighting, It is true that Andrew Lee and Shawn's friends had officially reported him missing to police the Wednesday of his failed court appearance after she spoke to Trisha. Despite the fact that Shawn was officially reported missing, little was done by police to look into Shawn's disappearance or alert his family.
Now, when they reported him missing to the cops, it was pretty much like, yeah, just fill out a form. They did nothing. The police station and the missing division there, they never called us.
They never called you?
They never called us. Well, first of all, I'm trying to even comprehend this missing. The word missing is so foreign, Who goes missing? Called the police station and they said, yeah, we know. And I said, why didn't anybody call us? You guys don't call the family anymore? And they said, he's a young male and they have a right to go missing if they want to, but really young men are at least of our worries. They're like the bottom of our priority is young males that go missing.
Without the help of local police, Terry, Trisha's sister, is left to investigate on her own. It is Andrew Lee and Terry who were able to put enough pressure on police to obtain phone records, but without an official order from the judge, they couldn't get the cell phone company to ping Shawn's phone. Andrew Lee tries calling it for the first few days, but it eventually goes straight to voicemail. One important clue they uncovered about the day Shawn went missing, because of calls he made on his cell phone, was an incident he had at a local bicycle renting company.
The cops, of course, found out he was missing, and then, they pulled his phone records, and they saw that was one of the calls that he made. He called the bike store, then he showed up at the bike store, and he tried to rent a bicycle, but before Shawn came up missing, he had lost his wallet. He had no ID or anything on him. So I guess just with cash, he tried to, rent a bicycle, and they denied him at the store.
Oh, so he wasn't ever actually able to get the bicycle?
No.
But they were able to identify him as the person that was there trying to rent the bicycle, though?
They remember him very well because I guess he had a fit because he couldn't get a bicycle. He had the money, but they were like, well, we need more of the money. You have to have like a credit card to put down. We have to know who you are. You don't have an ID. We can't just say, hey, just give us $50 and then, hopefully you bring the bike back. He kind of had a fit in the store, I guess, of some sort, and they remember him. They were like, oh, yeah, we remember that guy. Yeah, he tried to rent a bicycle, and then he was denied, so.
Besides the incident at the bike shop and the pictures he took, there are no other clues uncovered about the day of or days after Shawn's last reported sighting in San Francisco. While Trisha and Andrew Lee are adjusting to their lives without Shawn, they begin reflecting on their experiences with him to see if they could shed light on what might have happened to him. Did he leave voluntarily? Was he met with foul play? Did he take his own life? I'm curious to know whether or not Shawn had ever been depressed or expressed any thoughts of suicide or anything in that regard.
Yeah, because I went down that road too with thinking about that. I found out after he came up missing that he went through depression. They would find him in his room. He'd be in there for a couple of days and not eat or anything. But they told me that they had a party one night, and kids were kind of young people. They kind of just sit around and talk about, oh, if I died, I wouldn't want to die in a fire. If I did this, or have you ever thought about doing suicide? They just were talking about death. And they said they remember Shawn saying, I would never kill myself. I would never do that to my mom because she lost my dad. In the here and now, that all sounds good. But when you're depressed, I understand people do things in that moment of, you don't think about my mom. I'm not thinking about my mom. I'm not thinking about her feelings. It's just you and your sadness. He could have, but where? I thought about when he walked on the roofs. Did he fall? Did he twist his ankle? But then I'm like, well, if he did, they would have found him. So anyway, going forward, there's this gal that told me about the rainbows. Do you know about the rainbow family?
No, I don't.
Okay, boy, that's a whole new thing. You gotta look these people up.
I wasn't sure why Trisha was mentioning the Rainbow family to me, let alone who these people were. Up until this point in my research of Shawn's case, I had heard no mention of this group of people called the Rainbow family. So I took her advice and I looked them up. It's hard to explain what the Rainbow family is exactly because they practice a form of anarchy that includes no centralized leadership or representation. They have no official membership list or organization spokesperson, so finding someone to talk to was impossible. The first Rainbow Family gathering happened in 1972 when a group of free-spirited individuals got together to pursue their larger goals of peace and love on Earth. The idea quickly spread and smaller groups of people began living a lifestyle that could be described as anti-capitalist and off the grid. These smaller groups would meet up with other groups to form large rainbow gatherings. Some of the largest rainbow gatherings in the US have attracted between 10 and 40,000 people at one time. There they spend weeks, sometimes months, living in an independent community. A 2012 documentary called We Love You went to a gathering and talked to members of the Rainbow family.
We have created a space where magic can exist.
Well, I feel that rainbow is a spiritual thing.
I heard about rainbow when I was 21, hitchhiking around the country.
Everybody else out in the world seems pretty stuck in the patterns that we've created.
Maybe it's utopia, maybe it's a vision.
It's taught me a lot about how to survive on my own.
But I think coming back to the earth and coming back to a simple kind of lifestyle in the woods to sort of consider there's water, there's wood, you have to protect against the cold. It takes people out of this capitalist attitude of consuming all the time.
I like the rainbow gathering because it's about freedom.
I love
Trisha
you.
goes on to explain
Welcome
to me
home.
the connection between the Rainbow family and Shawn's disappearance, telling me that she had received a tip from someone saying that this group sounded like something that Shawn might be interested in. Trisha, catching wind of a convention happening nearby in Utah, decided to visit to see if she could find Shawn or to see if anyone had seen him. Nothing much comes out of this trip to Utah, and Trisha returns home with no additional clues about Shawn's whereabouts. I'm not sure what it was about the Rainbow family that was so compelling to Trisha. Perhaps she could see Shawn identifying with their philosophies and way of life. Regardless, it gave Trisha a newfound hope that Shawn could be, after all these years, still alive. Later, Trisha hears about another mother from California whose 15-year-old son was missing and also believed to be a member of the Rainbow family. This other mother was planning on attending a large Rainbow family gathering in Norwood, Colorado, where her son had been sighted. Trisha asked this mother if she would take Shawn's picture with her and keep an eye out for him while she was there.
They got out there. They were looking for her son. Well, they go to this bonfire. At the end of the night, they all like to sit around and play music. So she goes to the bonfire. Well, she sees Shawn. She sees Shawn. And then she talks to her friend, is that Shawn or what? And they were like, yeah. So I get wind of it, that Shawn's been spotted in Norwood, that he's still there.
Excited and reinvigorated by this sighting, Trisha and Philip take off to Norwood to see if they can find Shawn amongst them.
Well, before we left, my husband goes, call the Norwood Police Department. And I go, okay. Called the Norwood Police, and I said, hey, my son's missing. So I said, hey, can I send you a flyer of my son, just in case, you never know. And he goes, yeah, why not? So I sent him a flyer. Actually, when he got on the phone the first time, he said, yeah, this is Sheriff Todd. How can I help you? And I said, hey, Todd. He goes, yeah. I go, you're the man. You're the man that's going to help me find my son.
Trisha and Philip pack up their vehicle and make the almost 7-hour trek from Denver to Norwood, Colorado.
We take off, we go up there. Oh, God, it was raining and muddy, and then it was hot and it was cold. Oh, gosh. We walked through the mud, and there wasn't a lot of people there. There was, but they were scattered. And we asked, hey, what's going on? We noticed people are leaving, and we know that you guys haven't been up here very long. We're leaving. They're like, oh, well, they didn't bring any water. We have shortage of water, and so we're drinking out of the creek, and people are getting sick. We were there, 4 days? We slept in the van. So we come home. I'm filthy dirty and exhausted, so I go take a shower. I get out of the shower, and there's a message, and I listen, and it was Sheriff Todd.
Ms. Brucker, Todd Rector here with the San Miguel County Sheriff's Office. I wanted to speak with you a little bit more about your son and have a couple of real recent sightings of him, like in the last day or so. I have information where he's heading and wanted to advise you that we did determine that he was here. So he is alive. Some of the Rainbow folks that were with him yesterday, and I'm happy to discuss what we uncovered. Thank you.
So what happened was 4 of the Rainbows came down to the main town there, and they broke into stores. They broke the windows and were stealing stuff. So they got caught, and they got in trouble, and, they were arresting him. And he said, well, hey, let's show them Shawn's picture. So they separated the boys, and they showed them Shawn's picture. And the boys are younger than my son. They're probably about the age that Shawn came up missing, early 20s. And they showed, each separately, they each showed him Shawn's picture, and they said, do you know him? And they go, oh, yeah, we know him. His name's Trip. And they go, oh, you know him? And he goes, yeah. But they go, well, we don't, and it says Shawn Dickerson on the flyers. It's missing, Shawn Dickerson. They go, we don't know Shawn Dickerson because his name's Trip. And they said that that they also knew that he was a missing person because he told them.
Since those initial sightings by the mother in California and the reported claims by members of the Rainbow family that Shawn was living amongst them using the name Trip, there have been no additional sightings or confirmations of Shawn's whereabouts.
But you go through emotions like you would not believe. I have gone through everything in my mind that could have happened to Shawn. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to pay rent. I don't want to work for the man. I mean, it's pretty much like stick it to the man and then just go off and live like 1969 and hang out on Haight and Ashbury, And I'm like, if that's what you're doing, then I'm okay with that. If you're just trying to just go find yourself, you're young, you want to go play your music on the corner, but if that's what you want to do, let me buy you a phone so you can keep, so you can call and say, I'm okay, I'm alive. I'm starving and I'm dirty, but I'm alive, We don't know where you are. And then it makes me mad that if you are alive and you decided just to become, just to go live on your own and don't say anything to us, well, that makes me mad because we're hurting. We're hurting and he's not giving us any relief. And we've been doing this now for, December will be 6 years now. We're going on to 6 years. When someone dies or passes away, you don't like it, but it's a final thing and it's a fact. And so you begin to heal. You may not be completely over that person or, they're hard to replace or that kind of thing, but at least you can heal. When you have someone that's missing, there's no healing.
Today, Shawn would be 27 years old. Because of the nature of the Rainbow family and the structure of their organization, we are asking all of our listeners to chime in on this conversation. Have you been to a Rainbow family gathering? Are you currently a member of or used to be one and are willing to talk to us about your experience? And more importantly, have you ever encountered someone at one of these gatherings named Trip that fits Shawn's description? If you have, please contact us at contact@thinairpodcast.com or visit our website, thinairpodcast.com, and fill out the contact form. We would like to thank Trisha Brucker for talking to us about Shawn. We would also like to mention that we reached out to both Andrew Lee and Shawn's bandmate, but we never heard back from either. Music today provided by Blue Dot Sessions. Check out their incredible selection of music at sessions.blue. For more information about Shawn, to view his missing persons flyer and see the pictures he last took before he disappeared, visit our website at thinairpodcast.com. Thin Air Podcast is produced by me, Daniel Calderon, and Jordan Sims, with production assistance from Nate Halda. One of the rewards through our Patreon is to get a shout out as an executive producer of our show. The executive producers of Thin Air Podcast are Adam Barbary, Irene Ryan, Sarah Donahue, Elle McManus, Corbin Tender, Wendy Gaboret, Bridger Mobley, Susan Anderson, Jack and Christy Lupian, Drusilla Dentz, Rebecca Harberger, Heather Cadieu, Bonnie Mortensen, Mistea Pena, Elizabeth Farmer, and Anthony Loper. Thank you so much for all your incredible support.